Get ready to sit back, relax, and open your mind. Welcome to Thinking Deeply with Dudes and Beer.
Well, hello everybody. As the intro said, welcome to Thinking Deeply with Dudes and Beer. I am the dude of Dudes and Beer, Chris Jordan, your host. And today on Thinking Deeply, you know, it's been a little while since I've done one of these. I did a couple on the road not too long ago, posted one of them, didn't do the other one just because I thought that we'd really already covered that topic all too recently. And a lot of this show is based on what happens to me personally. You know, not just Dudes and Beer itself. I mean, of course, Dudes and Beer has a lot to do with me personally. It has a lot to do with things that I see in the news, topics that just happen to come up in conversation during the week that I think, hey, you know, that'd make a great topic. Or artists that I think are moving and shaking, businesses that I think are doing great things in town, stuff like that. But Thinking Deeply in particular is much more of a personal journey, I guess, kind of like Dads and Beer. Dads and Beer is me trying to glean information from people that I know that are fathers who I look up to, people that I have seen instill values in their children that I want to instill in my son Dalbus, who is quietly in the midriff of wake and sleep over here next to me at the control booth in the home studio. And, you know, it's just as these things happen in the world around us, as they happen in society, you have to ask yourself, have you educated yourself? Have you taken the time to be aware? Have you taken the time to realize what's going on in the world around you? And that's what I want to get into today is, you know, a realization that all too many of us aren't aware of. And that's really the difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy and empathy is what we're going to talk about today. And, you know, I've read a few books on this topic. I was a psychology student in college. That's where I met our friend Rusty Lozano. Was in college, and I've recently guested on his show a couple times, Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, to talk about various topics, and just a different take, just a common man's take, not someone who is a doctor, though he has doctors as guests and everything. And, you know, it was in college with Rusty at University of Dallas where I realized that you have to read. You have to keep yourself abreast of information, science, everything as we know it is constantly in shift, constantly in flux. And, you know, at Dudes and Beer, we're all about reading and growing the human brain, whether it's science fiction, horror, history, your favorite how-to books, whatever. Books are great, but in the hustle and bustle and grind of everyday life, it can be hard to find the time to sit down, turn a page, and enjoy a good book. That's where Audible comes in. An awesome new audiobook service from Amazon. Audible is the perfect way to catch up with all of your favorite reading on the go. Listen to your books wherever you are with the free app, in your home, in your car, at the gym. Even if you switch devices, you will never, ever lose your place. You get to listen to A-list celebrities narrate their favorite stories, enjoy full cast performances, and discover Grammy Award-winning audiobooks and more. With the world's largest library of audiobooks, you're sure to find the perfect place to listen. If you don't love a book that you've gotten at Audible, just swap it out for another book anytime for free. Simply visit the audibletrials.com website. That's audibletrials.com/dudesandbeer to get your 30-day free trial of Audible today. What do you get with this deal? You get a 30-day free membership that comes with your first book to get you started reading immediately. You also get 1 credit per month after the trial is good toward any audiobook, regardless of the price. You get ad-free premium audio when you listen offline with no interruptions to your service. So even, if you're out and about, you won't have any issues listening to your audiobook. You get to build your own library and keep the books, even if you cancel your Audible membership, which I don't know why you would want to do that. You also get exclusive members-only savings at an additional 30% off of every audiobook. And like I said before, you get easy exchanges. If you don't like a book, swap it out for free anytime. So once again, visit audibletrials.com/dudesandbeer today to join the amazing Audible audiobook service from Amazon and start listening to your favorite books today. That website again is audibletrials.com/dudesandbeer. Start reading your favorite books with your ears today, folks. And, as I said before, this show is so much about education. I taught for years and years. I taught junior high, I taught high school, I taught some adult things. I even taught elementary. So I like to tell people all the time, the only difference between the age of 4 and 40 is that by the age of 40, you should know better than to pull people's hair. That's really the only difference. Deep inside, every 4-year-old is just as childish and throws fits just as frequently as a 4-year-old, and every 4-year-old is just as deep as your average 40-year-old who can ask the craziest, deepest questions in the world out of nowhere, and you're like, hey, kid, you ain't even supposed to be thinking about that yet. And the reason I bring that up is the difference between sympathy and empathy. The difference between sympathy and empathy. That's a hard one, because it isn't until later in life that you really start to realize the difference. I've gotten to a point in life, I'm not going to say where I don't throw childish fits. I'm not going to say where I don't do childish things. I do. But I've gotten to a point in life where I don't try to get the sympathy plea too much anymore. And we all know what that is. It's the person that always has some kind of tragedy going on. Excuse me as I take a sip of my adult beverage here. It is, after all, Dudes and Beer. And we are thinking deeply with the silver bullet today, folks. It is a hot day outside, so... sympathy and empathy, you really do have to come down to think about the fact of the sympathy plea. People who, like I said, always have some kind of issue, always have some kind of situation going on that's drama. And we've spoken before about that. A lot of that is self-fulfilling prophecy, self-manifestation. If you're looking for drama in your life, I guarantee you can find drama. Drama is the easiest thing in the world to find. The hard thing to find is good stuff. The hard thing to find is a place in life where you feel comfortable, where you feel assured of yourself. And sympathy doesn't necessarily help us do that. I'm not saying it's not good to be sympathetic, but empathy, I think, is so much more important. Sympathy, I define more as feeling sorry for somebody, like I feel bad for you. But I don't take it a whole lot further than that, because I'm also typically of the mind that most people have the means at their disposal to change their present reality. And, take that how you will. There are a lot of people in the world who don't. And there's, whenever you're talking about that, whenever you're talking about people who can change their lot in life, there are some situations where you can and some where you can't. And God bless the people who can't. Those are the people who need our prayers every day. Those are the people who need our help. Those are the people who government programs exist for. Stuff like that is the people who cannot get the help. The people who are doing their level best and just can't get above. But most of us have the means by which to change something. And, there's the sympathy, which is feeling bad for somebody. And then there's the empathy. And the empathy, I think, really comes as a later point in life. We all know what a bad thing is. We all know why someone would be sad if they lost somebody they love. So sympathy is easy. Sympathy is easy. Anybody can give sympathy. Empathy is what I believe really makes the difference, not just with us, but with our interactions with other people. And here's what I mean by that. Empathy is the understanding of that person's pain. Having either felt that pain yourself, felt an iteration of that pain or a version of that pain, or know the person well enough who is suffering and going through this to know the situation and know what's going on with them. And you've been through something similar. That's empathy. Empathy is much more of the heartfelt, like, I'm here to help you, than sympathy. Sympathy is just feeling bad for somebody or feeling sorry for someone. And I don't really necessarily think that sympathy in and of itself is a healthy thing. That's just me. And the reason why I don't think that sympathy in and of itself is a healthy thing is I think it leads people to almost a point of codependence, almost to this point where they're just looking for that feel good. They're just looking for that that feeling of acceptance. And though that's okay whenever you get it, the problem is you're not always going to get that. That's not always going to be there, and you need something to sustain you. These things feel good. It's kind of like the difference between religion and spirituality. Religion is a great thing, and it can be experienced. That's why they're called religious experiences, because you are moved to such a point amongst your fellow man with your connection to God that something amazing happens to you. And it's something that, religion is something that's done over and over and over. Spirituality is something that is lived. And I think empathy is the same way, where one can exist without the other. I think the two really go hand in hand, but until we get older, much like, religion is a great thing, it gets you started on your path, but it's not until you've been on a path or, experimented with different paths throughout your life, by the time you're 30, 40 years old, that you've really kind of hammered out some things in life and figured out a path that's much better for you and that works much easier for you. By that point, you've had the struggles, you've had the issues, and it's much easier for us, I think, at that point in life to be able to empathize with someone than it is for us to sympathize, at least for me. Like I said, it's not that I don't still feel sorry for people, but, I'd much rather give you empathy. I'd much rather know where you're coming from. I would much rather be able to help you out in a spiritual way and give you some kind of depth or breadth as to what's going on with you than to just say, yeah, I feel bad for you. I don't know exactly how that helps. Just in and of itself, feeling bad for someone. That's not to discount anybody who says, I'm sorry for your loss or anything like that. Whenever you lose a loved one, it's not to discount anything like that. Those are still perfectly human things to do. Those are still perfectly viable ways of showing a reaching of care for somebody. But it's the empathetic person that takes it a step further. It's the empathetic person that's like, oh man, I'm so sorry to hear that you lost your grandfather. Like, have you had a chance to, sit back and think about, like, have you had a chance to actually relax since then? You know, do you need anybody to bring a meal over to the house? You know, anything like that? It's the person that reaches that little bit further to try and humanize what's going on, I think, is the empathizer. And the empathy, I think, resonates a lot more with humanity in a much larger scale, because when you're empathetic and empathic to begin with, it means to share. It means that, you know, you're actively looking for those feelings, and you're actively looking for those moments to be able to help somebody. That's what empathy is, and it's a sharing of vibration with people. And I mean, you know, I guess not to get too hippy dippy on it, but for me, we are all connected. We're all entirely connected, and I can walk into and I mean, here is the actual Merriam-Webster definition. Refers to the ability to relate to another person's pain vicariously, as if one has experienced that pain themselves. The understanding and sharing of the emotions and experiences of another person. And, you know, sometimes that's at a creepy distance, like I said. And that's where being an empath and, you know, learning to walk into a room and feel that something is wrong, you know, and some of us are more in tune to that than others. And that's, I believe this to be a truism. I believe this to be true, that there are empaths, there are people who process emotion differently, almost as a sensory perception. And I can say I definitely have had those moments in life where I've walked in somewhere and just felt queasy, just felt uneasy, felt utterly wrong, and like, hey, I don't need to be here right now. Like, what's happening? I need to get away from this. And horrible things end up happening at the party or what have you. And I think that's really kind of reaching into it, and it's a scary thing. It's something that not everybody wants to experience. So I firmly understand why most people would want to be sympathetic and not empathetic, because like that definition said, it's a sharing, and sharing is an action. That means that you are actively looking for the opportunity to share. And that makes a lot of people in our society nowadays just plain uncomfortable, man. Just plain uncomfortable. We're taught not to share. As men, I mean, that's a whole part of the Dudes and Beer podcast for Dads and Beer is, and why I started it, is our society as men to begin with is just messed up, man. It's just messed up. The paradigms in which we have taught people to think, the paradigms in which we've taught people to act, are not sound. They're not good. They're not healthy. Let's just say. And much like living a life disconnected from emotion, living a life around people who are negative of emotion, who are hateful, who do, distasteful things that make you angry, stuff like that, it directly affects your quality of life. It directly affects your quality of life. And whenever it affects your quality of life, it directly affects the quality of help that you can provide to other people. It directly affects, like, if I am an angry person, if I've had a really horrible day of gig and just like an hour and a half of traffic to drive 15 minutes down the road, like it is sometimes in Austin, and then I get home and there's no dinner or anything ready, and I didn't stop and pick anything up, and it's hard for me to not snap. and that's an unempathetic thing. That's me actively not wanting to share when I get home because I'm wanting to shut that down. I'm wanting to leave those horrible bad vibrations away from my sleeping child, who is angelically sleeping literally right here next to me, like 3 feet away from me. And I don't want my words to him to be tainted with that kind of vigorous anger at the world around me, I think that we as men in this society have been taught sympathy is for the weak, empathy is for women. We aren't supposed to have emotions. We're supposed to be emotionally disconnected. We're supposed to be stoic. And I think that's wrong. I don't find it healthy, and I definitely don't think that it puts us necessarily naturally in a place to foster good relationship. I don't either with other people of the same sex or people of the opposite sex. It really is an ingrained pattern that we have to fight hard against people. We have to fight hard to maintain our humanity in this day and age, and to maintain a point of empathy, not just feeling sorry for people, but actively striving to understand why they feel the way they feel, actively striving to share an emotive experience with these people. That's what empathy is. And like I said, I think that goes so much further than just feeling sorry for someone. And that's why I prefer not to feel sorry for people. I would much rather understand what's going on. I would much rather educate myself. I would much rather read interviews from people who've gone through it, or listen to interviews from people, and try to understand through my own lens of experience, which, like I said, is so much easier now that I'm rounding 42 this year. It's so much easier to do than when I was 21. When I was 21, when I was in my 20s, I had so much angst, so much anger because you just ain't refined that decision process yet, and it's not that things don't necessarily manifest the way that you want. It's just that a lot of times things don't manifest, and you don't really know what to make of that or how to make it. So I think it's those failures of our 20s, those emotional failures, everything else, that really make up the basis upon which we actively use our emotions to have empathy with people as we're older. And those are the times when we choose whether or not to cut this emotional tie or to keep it going. And at one point in life, I had chosen to cut emotional and spiritual ties to where I didn't want to feel anymore. I didn't want all that. And it led to horrible, dark, bad places for me, because I am an emotive person. I am someone who feels that. I am someone who feels people around me, and attempts to be present emotionally in the world around him, and try to understand the plight of people, and try to make other people understand their plight once I understand it. So for me, it led to horrible, bad things. I can't imagine the other people in the world who that has happened to as well. That's why I choose to talk about it. That's why I choose to make this a topic today, is because I feel that our society does not encourage empathy. I really don't think it does. Whether it be politically, whether it be spiritually, whether it be personally, I think we're taught an isolationist attitude, and we're taught a take care of number one, always look out for number one attitude. And that's not necessarily the best or most healthy thing, because sometimes number one is highly, number one's just where you start counting. There's a whole lot of numbers that come after that and that depend on that. So, you have to be grounded. You have to be kind of the lightning rod of emotion to be able to take things in, process them, and bring them back out, and ground them, make them right, and present them to other people. And that's the difference between sympathy and empathy to me. And that's why I truly believe that empathy is the most important quality that we can have toward each other right now in society, in the world. Everything else, beyond even, it starts with understanding, and after that it goes to empathy. Because once you have understanding, you can actively put yourself in that person's shoes, and see that. And it doesn't work for every situation in life, but it works for most of them. And I think that if we were to take that attitude, that I think we'd go a lot further as humanity. I think that we would get a lot further, a lot faster. So, as we wrap up this episode, I want to thank everybody for your support, quite honestly. Thank you for empathizing with us here at Dudes and Beer and on Thinking Deeply. We love the content. We love our audience. We love bringing things to you guys, all the new stuff. Until next time, everybody, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Bye-bye. You can't be good. Do good, right?
Thanks for listening to this installment of Thinking Deeply with Dudes and Beer. Tune in next time for more deep introspection, contemplative thought, and general musings on humanity and life. Right here on Thinking Deeply with Dudes and Beer. Like what you heard? Feel free to tune into the other content by Dudes and Beer on dudesandbeer.com. Our content is also available on the Spreaker market, as well as SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, and your favorite podcast app. Dudes and Beer is a proud member of the Revolution Digital Group family of podcasts. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. And until next time, drink responsibly.